The movie begins in a prison cell where Chloe Sava, a mentally ill criminal, is having a counseling session with psychiatrist Dr. Miranda Grey. Chloe insists the devil revisited her last night and physically assaulted her. However, Dr. Grey doubts her story, suggesting it might be her stepfather instead. Chloe denies it, explaining that she had killed him with her own hands. As Dr. Grey notes down her words, Chloe's frustration boils over. She is enraged that everyone dismisses her truth, labeling her as insane. Miranda has heard enough and abruptly ends the session. In response, Chloe lashes out and is escorted back to her cell. Dr. Miranda Grey is a psychiatrist at Woodward Penitentiary in rural Connecticut. She regularly counsels Chloe to see if her mental health is improving. However, she believes Chloe is making up satanic stories to cope with the guilt of killing her stepfather. After her recent session, she expresses her frustration to Dr. Douglas Grey, senior psychiatrist, and her husband. In response, Dr. Douglas or Doug reassures her that she will find a way to help Chloe in due time. Exhausted after a long day, the couple share a kiss before being interrupted by their colleague, Dr. Pete Graham. After a brief conversation, Doug informs his wife that he will visit his cottage in Willow Creek on the way home. Seizing the opportunity, Pete flirts with Miranda and suggests they go for coffee. However, Miranda spends the rest of the evening working on Chloe's file. To unwind at the end of the day, she decides to go for a swim. Later that night, it is raining heavily as Miranda prepares to leave for home. Pete walks her to her car with an umbrella. He is clearly into Miranda and follows her car downhill from where they go their separate ways. A little further down the road, Miranda's car is stopped by a police patrol. Sheriff Bob Ryan, a close friend of Doug, tells her the road is closed due to a sinkhole. He suggests she take a detour down the road and through a little white wooden bridge to reach her home. On her way, Miranda calls Doug to let him know she will be there in a few minutes. As she struggles to get her message across due to poor network reception, she suddenly spots a girl standing in the middle of the road. Miranda swerves her car to avoid hitting the girl and ends up crashing by the roadside. Shaken but determined, Miranda gingerly approaches the girl. The girl stands motionless in the pouring rain, her white nightgown completely soaked. As Miranda comes face to face with the girl, she notices a deep gash on her chest. Concerned, Miranda reassures the crying girl that she is a doctor and will help her. Abruptly, the girl begins to shake violently and bursts into flames. Miranda lets out a loud scream as the girl grabs her face with her flaming hand. Next thing we know, Miranda wakes up with a gasp and horrifyingly finds herself in an observation cell of Woodward Penitentiary. She lashes out, demanding an explanation which prompts the staff to restrain her. Her anger subsides slightly when Dr. Pete Graham enters for a one-on-one conversation. Pete explains that he has secured a court waiver to treat her until her transfer to prison. He reveals that she has been there for 3 days due to severe brain damage that triggered multiple seizures. Pete then asks if she recalls anything from that night. Miranda pieces together fragments of her memory and tries to tell him about the girl she encountered at the bridge. However, Pete dismisses any talk about the girl and instructs her to focus on the last thing she remembers about Doug. He then delivers the shocking news that Doug is dead, and she is the prime suspect in his murder. Miranda's emotions spiral out of control, forcing the staff to sedate her. As the sedative takes effect, she experiences flashbacks of a bloody scene. The next day, Miranda joins the other inmates in the penitentiary's recreational area. She tries to separate herself from her former patients by sitting alone on a bench, but Chloe joins her. Chloe mocks Miranda, remarking that she now understands how it feels to be misunderstood because people think she is crazy. As Chloe leaves, she tosses a piece of paper at Miranda. It is a newspaper clipping detailing the brutal murder of Dr. Douglas Grey by his wife, Dr. Miranda Grey. That night in her cell, the lights begin to flicker erratically. Miranda hears heavy breathing outside her cell, but sees no one. Suddenly, fog envelopes the glass wall, followed by a chilling message, "Not alone." Miranda tries to rationalize her experience, convincing herself it was just a dream. She curls up in the corner with her head buried in her hands. To her surprise, she is jolted up by a nurse with medication almost immediately. Reluctantly, Miranda takes the medicine and joins the other inmates for her first communal shower. While taking a shower, she is startled by the sight of the girl she had encountered at the bridge. Panic-stricken, Miranda runs around, scaring and irritating other inmates. The girl follows Miranda around the shower and slashes her arm, leaving her bleeding on the floor. The doctors swiftly bandage Miranda's arm and conclude that she slashed herself 35 times using a stolen scalpel. The nurse discloses that Chloe has been placed in solitary confinement, as she was seen threatening Miranda earlier. Meanwhile, Pete arrives for a routine checkup, and Miranda vehemently denies cutting herself. In response, Pete suggests increasing her medication dosage to stop her hallucinations and urges her to trust him. Miranda repeats Chloe's words from their earlier encounter, "You can't trust somebody when they think you are crazy." Following the checkup, Miranda and the other patients are escorted to the prison yard. Here, she requests Dr. Phil to assign her a new doctor instead of Pete. However, Dr. Phil declines, firmly stating that Pete is one of his finest physicians. Miranda then notices Pete observing her through a small window. In the next scene, Miranda meets her lawyer, Teddy, declares her innocence in Doug's murder, and laments everyone treating her like a crazy person. However, Teddy presents overwhelming evidence against her, including fingerprints on the murder weapon and at the crime scene. He advises her to plead insanity to delay the hearing scheduled for the following week. Increasingly alienated, Miranda realizes that even Teddy doesn't believe her. Meanwhile, Sheriff Bob Ryan summons Miranda for questioning. Despite Teddy's reluctance, Miranda agrees to meet Bob, convinced of her innocence. However, the meeting quickly escalates into a heated confrontation as an emotionally distraught Bob accuses her of murdering his best friend. He presents gruesome photographs of the crime scene, depicting dismembered body parts and the blood-stained message "Not alone" on the door. Suddenly, Teddy notices something strange with Miranda's bandaged arm. To everyone's shock, the words "Not alone" are etched into her arm. In the aftermath of the incident, Miranda is sedated once again, triggering flashbacks of the fateful day. She envisions herself unlocking her house, clutching the axe, and standing in front of a horrified Doug. The girl from the bridge reappears, and she also sees herself engulfed in flames after the girl grabbed her face. The following morning, she visits Phil in her office under the watchful eye of Pete. She admits that she was there, in her home at the time of the murder. However, she adds she was not alone, which is what the "not alone" written on the wall means. But before they can move forward with the conversation, her eyes fall on the photo of a young girl kept behind Dr. Phil. She quickly grabs the photo and reveals this is the girl that she saw on the bridge, that she has been seeing everywhere. Dr. Phil says that it is her daughter, Rachel Parsons, in the photo, but she died 4 years ago. That night, alone in her cell, Miranda attempts to communicate with Rachel Parsons' ghost, asking for her release from the cell. The door miraculously unlocks, and Miranda rushes towards her office, only to find it locked. She then heads to Pete's office, where she discovers a newspaper article detailing Rachel Parsons' suicide on the computer screen. A window on the computer flickers open, revealing Rachel's ghost standing outside solitary confinement. Miranda realizes Chloe is there and rushes to her rescue. However, before she can open the door, she witnesses Chloe being violently assaulted by a man with a tattoo depicting a woman engulfed in flames on his chest. Terrified, Miranda flees the scene, only to be apprehended by guards. The following day, Miranda is taken to Pete's for further consultation. She recounts her encounter with the tattooed man. Pete identifies the tattoo as Anima Sola, a biblical depiction of a woman enduring temporary suffering while awaiting her fate, which he believes mirrors Miranda's mental turmoil. Dismissive of his interpretation, Miranda insists that Rachel Parsons' death was not a suicide. Exasperated, Pete labels her delusional and leaves the room. That afternoon, Chloe is finally released from solitary confinement. Miranda approaches her and apologizes for doubting her story. To her surprise, Chloe embraces her and delivers a chilling message. "The devil says you are next." Following her escape attempt, Miranda was sent to solitary confinement for the night. However, she is attacked by Rachel Parsons' ghost, who tosses her around the cell. The guards monitoring the security cameras witness this as Miranda's apparent self-harm attempt and rush to her aid. As a guard enters her cell, Miranda knocks him over, snatches the keys, and sprints towards the exit. She navigates the passageways and staircases, eventually reaching the pool she frequented for swimming. She submerges herself deep within the pool, evading the two guards searching for her. As they turn to leave, she spots Rachel Parsons' ghost approaching her. Fortunately, the water muffles her scream, preventing her from being detected. With the assistance of Joe, the friendly security guard, Miranda successfully evades the guards. Moreover, Joe even provides her with the keys to his car, enabling Miranda to escape the prison. As she speeds away, she notices the ghost in the backseat and tries to stop the vehicle. However, the brakes fail, and she narrowly avoids a collision with an oncoming truck. Before she can regain her composure, she crashes the car just before the massive sinkhole that blocked the road. Upon reaching her former home, Miranda is startled by the lights automatically turning on. As she enters, she is flooded with flashbacks of the murder. A maimed Doug drags himself through the hallway, pleading for his life. Miranda sees herself wielding the axe, delivering the final blow that ends Doug's life. The flashbacks intensify as she enters the bedroom through the blood-splattered door. In the bathroom, she witnesses herself submerged in a bathtub filled with blood. As she rises and confronts her reflection in the mirror, she fights against Rachel's ghost possessing her. The flashbacks fade, and Miranda's memory is now completely restored. She sits down with a photo of Doug and her, tears streaming down her face as she questions why she had taken his life. Suddenly, a drop of blood falls on the photo, reminding her of Doug's frequent visits to Willow Creek. The next morning, Miranda travels to Doug's small cottage in Willow Creek. As she explores the old, wooden home, she stumbles upon reels of photos scattered on the floor. Upon closer inspection, she discovers a hidden hatch leading to an underground passage. Underground, she switches on what appears to be studio lights and is met with a horrifying sight: a bed splattered with drops of blood, chains, drugs, and a video camera. Curious and afraid, she plays the video camera and witnesses a disturbing scene: Doug forcing himself on a restrained girl on the same blood-soaked bed. With a chilling realization, Doug turns to the camera and utters the words, "It's good to be their God." This revelation shatters Miranda's perception of her husband, exposing his dark, sadistic secret. He had been kidnapping, torturing, and physically assaulting women for years, all while concealing his monstrous acts from her. Miranda's train of thought is abruptly interrupted by footsteps from upstairs. Instinctively, she hides in a dark corner, but her attempt to evade capture proves futile. A policeman corners her, and simultaneously a pair of arms grab Miranda from behind. Out of the darkness, emerges from the bloodied and bruised face of the girl who was in the video. She pleads for help. To Miranda's shock, the girl is revealed to be Tracy, a missing person reported a week ago. News of the horrifying revelation spreads like wildfire, captivating the media's attention. A reporter poses a question to Sheriff Bob Ryan, inquiring whether the FBI was taking over the investigation. Meanwhile, Miranda is confined to an interrogation room, where Dr. Phil pays her a visit. Phil is deeply shaken by the revelation of Doug's crimes, a man he had considered a trusted friend and colleague for years. Miranda calmly asserts that Rachel, Phil's daughter, had not committed suicide but is instead a victim of Doug's murderous actions. She firmly believes that Rachel's ghost is attempting to communicate with her, sending messages from beyond the grave. Miranda desperately seeks Pete's assistance, hoping he would help her. She explains how the man with the anima sola tattoo is connected to the recent murders, but Pete dismisses her supernatural beliefs, insisting that she abandon her delusions. Realizing Pete was unwilling to help, Miranda requests to speak with Sheriff Bob Ryan. However, she is informed of his absence from the prison and is assured that her message will be relayed to him. Reluctantly, Pete delves into research about the anima sola tattoo. Meanwhile, Miranda, alone in her cell, receives an unexpected visit from Sheriff Bob Ryan. She pleads with him to hear her out calmly, and they settle into a conversation within her cell. Miranda explains that the phrase "not alone" signifies the presence of two killers, one being Doug and the other the man bearing the burning woman tattoo on his chest. Surprisingly, Bob readily accepts Miranda's claims, even asking her to create a profile of this tattooed individual. Drawing upon her expertise in psychiatry, Miranda informs him that this man must have been Doug's apprentice, has unresolved motherly issues, derived pleasure from harming animals during his childhood, and struggles with his sexual identity as a man. Sheriff Bob becomes visibly uneasy, prompting him to delve deeper into questioning Miranda. Throughout their conversation, Miranda gradually realizes that her profile perfectly matched Bob's characteristics, and the only reason he sought her input was to cover up his involvement in the murders. Abruptly, Sheriff Bob Ryan springs up, attempting to sedate Miranda. However, the lights mysteriously switch off, and Miranda seizes the opportunity to stab the injection into Bob's neck before making an escape. Ripping off his shirt and revealing the anima sola tattoo etched on his chest, Bob pursues Miranda relentlessly, firing his gun indiscriminately. One of the bullets hits a gas pipeline, causing a gas leak to develop. Miranda runs to an office upstairs and hides under a table. Bob cautiously searches the room, his shotgun poised, ready to fire at the slightest movement. As he approaches the table, a shadow diverts his attention, leading him away. Emboldened by the temporary distraction, Bob begins to confess their heinous crimes. He reveals that he and Doug had abducted Rachel Parsons, subjecting her to the same torment they had inflicted upon countless local women. Slowly, the injection makes Bob feel disoriented, but he manages to spot a girl standing across from him through a window. Mistaking her for Miranda, he fires at the glass, shattering it. To his shock, he realizes the girl is Rachel Parsons, and he impulsively shoots her. However, the bullet triggers the leaked gas, causing an explosion that engulfs Bob in flames, mirroring the burning woman tattoo on his chest. Emerging from her hiding spot, Miranda aims her gun at Bob and fires a shot into his head, an act of retribution for his heinous crimes. Just then, Pete arrives at the scene and apologizes to Miranda for not believing her story. The next scene takes us ahead by a year. Miranda and Chloe are seen strolling down the street, their charges finally dropped. Chloe still struggles with vivid dreams, while Miranda claims to have suppressed those memories for good. Chloe expresses her gratitude to Miranda before departing in a taxi to catch her train. Just up ahead, a young boy stands inexplicably in the middle of the road, directly in the path of an approaching fire truck. However, in a surreal turn of events, the truck passes through the boy as if he were a ghost. The film ends as Miranda continues her walk, and the camera pans to a poster. It features the image of the same boy who had stood in the road moments earlier, his fate shrouded in mystery.